Hi, and welcome back. In this lesson, we're going to talk about accepting payments. And you'll notice that this is an updated version of the lesson. And you may have watched this lesson before, but I encourage you to watch this updated version because a lot of things are changing out there. And they're changing for the better. And the principal reason is right what you see here in this picture, and that is smartphones. So there are more ways than ever before for your student to pay you. All right. So let's start with the basics. First, there are two major scenarios out there, and either one or both might apply to you. So the first is that you work for a school or schools, in which case the school will collect payment for the student and then pay you. And the way this typically works is the school collects payment from the student up front. And then at the end of the month, they will pay you for classes that you delivered during the month. And it's kind of nice because they handle late payments and all that kind of stuff. Now, the other situation would be you're teaching students directly, and in which case you will receive payments directly from the student. Now, let's talk about each of these scenarios in a little bit more detail. So if you're working for a school, again, it's easy. They handle collecting the money. Again, they handle late payments and so on. So there's less for you to do. But there are a few things that you should be sure that you understand. You need to understand each school's policies. They will vary from school to school. But I think regardless of school, there are three things that you really want to understand. When exactly are you paid? That is how soon will the money be available? Most typically, you'll get paid once a month at the end of the month again for classes you delivered that month. But some schools do now pay at the end of each week, which of course is nice because you get your money sooner. Okay. Something else that you need to be sure you understand is how are cancellations handled. What is pretty standard throughout the industry is that same day cancellations, that is, the student cancels the day when they're supposed to have a class, those cancellations are forfeit. So the student pays and you as the teacher should be paid, but you want to verify that with the school. And then the final point, which is pretty obvious, I guess, is you want to understand exactly how you're going to be paid, by what mechanism. Is it going to be directly deposited into your account? Is it going to be via PayPal? How? All right. And again, this will vary from school to school. Now, even though the school is really doing the majority of the tracking, I still encourage you to do your own tracking. So at the end of the month, look at your calendar for that month, how many classes you gave, and be sure that the money that you're receiving matches up with the classes that you gave. I mean, accidents happen, short pays happen. Did you get paid for all the cancellations, same day cancellations? Just check that. And by the way, the reason that I selected this slide, which is a cuneiform tablet, is because writing evolved for this very purpose, was to track trade and payments. Now, let's talk a little bit about working independently. So you'll be working directly with your student, receiving payments directly from them. And I love this slide. Anytime I talk about teaching independently, I show this wild horse running down the beach. So again, first thing, you'll want to set up a tracking system, and it doesn't have to be anything complex. I have in Excel a very basic kind of tracking system. I have like the student's name and how much they pay me each month. The students pay me slightly different things depending on which currency they're in, when they, how long they've been working with me and so on. So I have the amount that I'm expecting, when it is paid, and then, some notes over to the side about like, how it's paid, by what mechanism, what app. Okay. But that's about it. Now, let me give you a pro tip. This is something that I had never anticipated when I started teaching, but sometimes you'll get a payment from somebody and you don't recognize that person. That person is not a student of yours. What probably happened is that your student's spouse or parent made a payment for your student. Okay. And so you'll need to kind of follow up with your different students to see who paid and so on. It kind of becomes a process of elimination. You look at your sheet, okay, here are all my students and these have paid. There are only these two that I don't see payments for, and you follow up with them to see whether perhaps somebody paid on their behalf. Just letting you know it happens. Now, once a payment is received, I always send acknowledgement to my students. Either, I send them a WhatsApp or, if I see them in class the next day, I thank them for their payment for two reasons. One, it's good business, right, to thank someone for their business, but also it lets them know that the payment was in fact received. Occasionally, not too often, but occasionally students will ask for an invoice or receipt. Say they're being reimbursed by their company for English classes. They may need this. And it's not a big deal. If your student needs one, you can get free forms at Form Swift or Dex Form. And you might want to do a screenshot of this page here so you have those handy. Or, you can ask your student to supply a blank or model form so you're sure to give them the pieces of information that they need. All right. Be sure, I can't stress this enough, be sure to handle late payments promptly. And you're working with these students and they kind of become like friends over time, but you want to be sure that you don't extend them credit. I mean, after all, you are not a bank. This is a business for you. If you deliver services, you deserve to get paid. And, this is, again, one of the reasons why I strongly suggest that you request payment at the beginning of the month rather than getting paid after the fact at the end of the month. You just don't have to worry about this. All right. Now, I want to shift gears here and talk a bit about specific ways in which students might pay you. When deciding which transfer platform to use, I think there are maybe three considerations, two, three. The first are, does a particular app that you want to use handle international transfers? As an example here, Venmo is very popular in the US, I think still, but it only works in the US and a few of its territories. I guess it's limited to the dollar, the US dollar. So I could not receive a payment from my students in Portugal or Brazil using Venmo. Second are the fees. Again, although PayPal and Stripe are popular, they're established, they've been around a while. Their fees are relatively high, somewhere in the range of 3.5% to 4% for each of them. They're pretty much equal. It's not a lot of money, but why would you pay it if you don't have to? Now, the final consideration, and it's not a big deal, is the exchange rate. You might want to look at that, but just understand that as an individual, you're never going to get the best exchange rate. The exchange rates that you typically see posted are like bank to bank rates, right? And you as an individual are never going to get those. So this is not a big concern, but I put it up here. And again, you'll never receive the best rate. That's the way it is. Okay. All right. So let's take a look at some of the big players in this market. The one that's been around for the longest is PayPal. And if you want to sign up with them, there's the link. You may well already have an account with PayPal. Almost certainly at some point you bought something through PayPal. You may have sent money to somebody through PayPal or received it. So I'm not going to talk a lot about it. I think most people watching this have had some experience with PayPal. Now, a sister company to PayPal is Stripe, and I'm not sure whether PayPal owns Stripe or whether Stripe and PayPal are both owned by the same parent company, but they're under the same umbrella. Stripe is nice because it accepts credit cards. It used to be that if you wanted to accept payments by credit card, you had to open a merchant account with the bank, which involved jumping through a lot of hoops. You had to have good credit and the fees were high, and it just made it out of reach for individuals like us. But with Stripe, it's quite easy to accept payments by credit card from students, and some students really like that. So it's very easy. Again, it's easy to sign up with Stripe, and you don't have to put money in or anything. What you do is at the beginning of the month, let's say when your students are due to pay you, you create a link and you send that to your student via email, via WhatsApp, what have you. The student clicks that link. It opens up a little dialog box where they put in their card information and everything, submit it, and you get paid. So the money goes into Stripe. And one of the things I like about Stripe is there's a slight delay of 3 or 4 days in which they want to be sure they collect the funds. But once the funds are collected, you can have that money automatically transferred into another account. So I have an account with Schwab Bank. Stripe will automatically transfer the money for me, and I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to remember to do it. So that's really nice. If you want to learn more about Stripe, you can go to this link here. If you want to sign up with Stripe, there's the link below. Again, you might want to get a screenshot of this page. Now, again, be aware, I talked about fees earlier, and that 3.5% to 4%, that's what applies with PayPal and Stripe. So in this case, you as the recipient of the money pay that fee. For some of the other apps we're going to look at here in a moment, the sender pays the fee. But for PayPal and Stripe, you will have to pay a fee of between 3.5% and 4%. It's not a huge amount, but why would you pay it if you don't have to? Another service you might look at, you might suggest to your student is XE as a means of paying you. XE has been around for a long time. They're reputable, they're established. You may have gone to xe.com to look at an exchange rate. I think that the primary drawback in using XE to transfer payments is it only works with a few major currencies. So, my students in Portugal who earn euros, they could pay me, but somebody in another country like Brazil could not. So you want to consider that. I have a student who pays me every month by Wise. This used to be called TransferWise, and this is also a nice system. There's an online version, there's an app version, and Paula pays me using that. And one of the things that's nice is he does have to pay a fee, but it's a low fee. I think it's in the neighborhood of 0.5%. So it's attractive for the students. But my recommendation, I've looked around at all of these, and I've been paid by most, if not all of them. I like Revolut. So you see the button there. Revolut is an app that was actually suggested to me by one of my students in Portugal. I had not heard of it, but it's evidently quite big in Europe. And I now suggest to my students that they pay me by Revolut. So why? What do I like about it? Well, there are a lot of reasons. It operates in a lot of countries more than XE, for example. It converts currencies seamlessly. So I try to get my students to pay me in dollars, right? But their bank account may be, in euros or reais or whatever, and they don't have to have an account denominated in dollars, right? They can just kind of figure out what the amount is, send it to me in their currency, and then Revolut converts it for no fee into dollars. And there are zero fees either for currency conversion or for transferring the money if both the sender and receiver have accounts with Revolut. And understand, you don't have to have any money in those accounts. You just have to open accounts with Revolut. So I rarely keep a balance in Revolut. But like Thais does, she sends me the money. Neither of us pay anything for that service. So you can't really argue with that, right? And although Revolut will not transfer money automatically into my Schwab account, it's still easy to transfer funds to my bank account. So what I'll typically do, because I receive payments from a number of students into Revolut, I'll kind of wait at the beginning of the month and okay, pretty much everybody who pays me by Revolut has paid. I've got the money in Revolut, and then I'll just do one transfer of that whole balance into my Schwab account. So it's really very easy. So I suggest if you're not familiar with Revolut that you take a look at it, maybe suggest it to your student if you're currently using something like PayPal or another service that charges a fee either to you or the student. Because this is, I think Revolut's the best deal out there that I've seen. And if you know of another service, another app that you'd like to suggest that might be beneficial to other folks out there, please do share. Let me know. And so we've been talking about receiving money. I guess the next logical topic is paying taxes.